this is Dan LaMontagne. It's Sunday, January 17th, 2010. Well, on Tuesday, we're about to have the special election. We have Martha Coakley, Scott Brown, and Joe Kennedy all vying for the seat formerly held by Ted Kennedy, who passed away recently. Two of the candidates are head-to-head. Joe Kennedy is really not in the picture. He's the Libertarian candidate, and he has some excellent ideas about cutting spending, but he's not in the race due to lack of funding and lack of voter support. So the two candidates who are really in the race are Martha Coakley, who is the Democrat, and Republican Scott Brown. And Scott Brown really emerged out of nowhere in this race because Martha Coakley was essentially thought to have had the race in the bag. Massachusetts is a very blue state, meaning that it's traditionally Democratic, and I don't think a Republican's won a Senate seat in Massachusetts since the 70s. So this is a pretty big thing that Scott Brown actually has a chance to win as a Republican. And, the other thing is that there's lots of interest groups around the country and politicians and media that are following this particular campaign, not just for its historical significance, but for its significance with regard to the health care bill. So, we have, the drug companies, we have President Clinton, we have Obama, all these individuals and organizations are getting together and crowding around their respective candidates to try to support them, specifically because of the health care bill. And the reason that this is so important in this campaign is that Martha Coakley has stated that she is going to vote for the health care bill, and Scott Brown has made it very public that he would vote against the health care bill and wants to send it back to the drawing board. Now, you would think, okay, this is the classic Republican versus Democrat argument. The Republican wants to rein in, government programs, and the Democrat wants to increase government programs. And, you would think that, the Republicans and the Democrats are pretty much polar opposites, and that we'll have a balancing out, of agendas here, and that we'll arrive at the optimal outcome as long as we keep the negotiations open. Well, for starters, that's actually not true. For starters, this election is actually about a supermajority vote. It's not about whether or not one party is going to get the majority or the other party is going to get the majority. This is about one party getting a supermajority. The Democratic Party is on the verge of securing 60 votes, which means that if they can get if they can get Martha Coakley in office in the Massachusetts Senate seat, then essentially the Republicans cannot block the health care bill, and none of the opinions that they set matter, because the Democrats can push this through whether or not the Republicans like it, and without any modifications from the Republican Party. And if the Republicans win, the Democrats still have a majority. They just don't have a supermajority. So the Democrats would just take a little bit longer potentially to pass this bill through, and it still could very well get passed without any problems. So essentially, this is just a bill about whether or not we're going to have bipartisan support on the bill or not. If Martha Coakley gets voted in, then the Democrats can just take the bill by storm, and there is no bipartisan support required. We don't need to have any of this, reaching across party lines, which is what Barack Obama was trying to say that he wanted to make his whole campaign about, reaching across the aisle and getting ideas from Republicans. With this, they would essentially just do away with that. There would be no reaching across the aisle or getting ideas. This would just be, basically forcing the ideas of the Democratic Party down the taxpayers' throats. But even if the Republicans get their way, we're still not winning. The Republicans have an agenda which is typically cut taxes and try to avoid try to avoid letting the Democrats succeed in fulfilling their plans. And maybe that's a little bit of a maybe that's a little bit too blunt, but basically it's true. I mean, the Republicans are not a party of conservatives. The Republicans don't even really know what they stand for right now. I mean, being a conservative, I can look at the Republican Party objectively and say that the Republicans really have nothing to do with the party that they once were. I mean, Reagan, for example, Ronald Reagan in the 80s was very focused on making sure that government was out of things like education and out of things like social service programs and out of things basically and out of other programs that are better run by the private sector. The private sector makes things less expensive and it makes things better over time. And the public sector has a history of making things more expensive and worse over time, less affordable, and cost a greater percentage of your income. That's the public sector's reputation, and that's what they've done. Look at things like Social Security. Look how expensive that's gotten, and look how little we actually get in return for that. Or Medicare and Medicaid. It's a perfect example as well. So basically, the Republican Party is not advocating conservative values. The Republican Party is simply advocating the Bush Republican initiatives, which are essentially spend, 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 and cut taxes. And this doesn't balance the budget. And essentially, this is going to create just as much of an economic catastrophe as the Democrats will create by increasing spending and by taxing more. The Democrats are going to strangle the economy by stifling its entrepreneurs, by taxing them, and by increasing their regulations, and also by mandating that the employers provide health care to the employees, thus increasing costs and making it so that they can't compete as well with foreign countries and companies, which they're already struggling to do. The Republican Party is going to cut off the ability for us to be competitive as well. I mean, the Republican Party is simply just increasing our deficit. They don't care about cutting our spending. So what they do is they just say we're going to cut taxes and create all these stimulus programs, and we're not going to worry about cutting any spending at all. So the deficits don't seem to matter to the Republicans either. So essentially, we need to have new ideas in Washington, which are not, your typical Republican and Democratic ideas. Ideas like the ones proposed by Ron Paul, who proposes essentially government needs to get out of the way. The reason we're in this hole to begin with is not because government didn't stop the financial catastrophe, it's because government caused the financial catastrophe. And because all of these large programs end up making it difficult for America to get back on its feet. We also have several other candidates who are running legitimately may win. For example, Rand Paul is running for the Senate in Kentucky, and Peter Schiff is running for the Senate in Connecticut. And as well, we have Joe Kennedy, who is the Libertarian running in Massachusetts, who is pretty much out of the race at this point. But essentially, the ideas of personal freedoms and of increasing personal freedoms and shrinking the size of government are catching on, but they are still fringe ideas at this point, and they're not considered to be in the mainstream. But once we see the economy starting to take a tailspin, we're really going to need to take another look at what it means to be conservative in the United States. The Republicans are going to have to reform their base. They're going to have to regroup and find out how to cut programs and how to make this budget balance. Anyway, that's it for today, guys, and thank you very much, and I will see you next week.